Brothers, today I'm breaking down a brand new, hard hitting Korean political thriller that just dropped Tempest. The story opens with an absolute bombshell inside a church. South Korea's most promising presidential candidate, Jang Jun-sil, is delivering his final campaign speech while his wife Moon-Ju sits in the audience below. Suddenly, a protester bursts out of nowhere, pulls out a gun, and with one gunshot, Jang Jun-sil collapses to the ground. Moon-Ju doesn't hesitate for a second. She rushes onto the stage, presses against her husband's wound, and keeps reassuring him that everything's going to be okay. But the assassin clearly isn't done. He walks straight toward her, ready to finish the job. In that critical moment, a mysterious man appears out of nowhere and takes down the assassin in seconds. The timing of this assassination is absolutely no coincidence. Jang Jun-sil, a candidate advocating for peaceful Korean unification, was leading in the polls by a landslide and was guaranteed to win the presidency in just a few months. But at this crucial moment, he gets shot in the head inside a church. Outside the operating room, the doctor regretfully announces that Jang Jun-sil couldn't be saved. Just as the family is drowning in grief, the family lawyer drops a bombshell 2 weeks earlier. Jang Jun-sil had already hired another lawyer to handle his entire estate distribution. 44 billion in cash, 28 billion in real estate, 55 billion in tangible assets. Even overseas assets, everything goes to his wife Moon-Ju. No exception. Grandma can't handle it on the spot, and Uncle Jang Jun-minus and jumps up in protest, claiming both the will and the lawyer are fake. But the lawyer firmly states that all documents are notarized and legally binding. Grandma leads the charge. 3 generations of the Jang family's accumulated wealth from their business empire has overnight fallen into the hands of this woman, who never even gave the family children. What's most intriguing is how Jang Jun-sil could have predicted his own death 2 weeks in advance. Moon-Ju explains that Jang Jun-sil had mentioned wanting to arrange all his assets before taking office. But now those words sound incredibly ominous. Moon-Ju, as a former UN ambassador, is no ordinary person herself. She gave up her career just a month ago to return to Korea for her husband's presidential dream. Right before heading to the church, Jang Jun-sil had given his wife a cross necklace. His expression was strange that day, as if he had something he couldn't say, promising to tell her the whole truth that evening. Now, facing her husband's senseless death, she chooses to donate all the wealth and then uses her status as a widow to run for president herself. Meanwhile, as the Jang family feud rages on, the mysterious man Mark is repairing Moon-Ju's fallen necklace. That's when he gets a call from a former colleague offering him a bodyguard job with excellent pay. The client specifically requested him to protect a Korean politician's widow, none other than Moon-Ju. But the terms are weird. Mark was make Moon-Ju think hiring a bodyguard was her own idea. Can't reveal anything about his employer, and has to gather intelligence on Moon-Ju, who she meets, what she talks about. This mission is full of contradictions. If the employer truly wants to protect Moon-Ju, why hide their identity? If it's malicious surveillance, why send the top-D agent to provide real protection? Meanwhile, Moon-Ju gets the assassin's identity from the police, a retired special forces soldier with paranoia whose home was plastered with photos and materials of Jang Jun-sil, perfectly fitting the psychological profile of a political fanatic. All evidence points to this being a lone-wolf political revenge attack. As for the mysterious Mark, police search everywhere, but can't find him, like he vanished into thin air. So Moon-Ju goes to the church to ask the priest, not knowing Mark is upstairs watching them both. Moon-Ju thought she'd never see Mark again and begins preparing for the election. Through observation, Mark discovers that despite her trauma, Moon-Ju has exceptional emotional control and maintains a normal life rhythm. This psychological resilience isn't something an ordinary diplomat could possess. It's more like someone with professional intelligence training. During a walk one day, Moon-Ju suddenly realizes the figure ahead looks very familiar. It's Mark returning her necklace, but their meeting is being followed. Mark senses danger and immediately takes Moon-Ju to escape, but their pursuers won't give up. Once they reach safety, Moon-Ju finally asks the burning question, why did the assassin say her husband was a spy? Mark's answer confirms her intuition. The assassin definitely wasn't crazy, and there's definitely a mastermind behind this. Because at the scene, Mark discovered that before the assassination, the killer had secretly slipped a business card into the Bible. Mark carefully examined the card and found only a string of numbers in the bottom right corner that looked like a phone number. He tried calling it, but it was disconnected, so he hid nearby to observe, and sure enough, within minutes someone arrived at the scene searching, apparently tracking who had made the call. Mark explains that after investigating, he found an unused number that someone was monitoring for call records, meaning the mastermind behind this has enormous power. They can make numbers disappear and activate any number they want at will. Then Mark pulled up surveillance footage from around the church and discovers that before the attack, the assassin had met with someone. The person in the car was none other than Moon-Ju's brother in-law, Jang Jun-san. This discovery hit Moon-Ju like a ton of bricks. She went to ask her husband's secretary and learned that her husband had frequently mentioned someone with a con named Squirrel before his death. Back home, flipping through old photos, she found her answer Jun-san had been bitten by a squirrel as a child, leaving leaving a scar on his face. So Jun-Sil gave his brother this nickname. Her husband's frequent mentions of Squirrel before the assassination word, definitely no coincidence. Moon-Ju confronted Jun-, and directly faced with her accusations. Jun-San's reaction was unexpected. Instead of denying it, he admitted to following his brother, but his reasoning was even more shocking. As a special investigation prosecutor, he suspected his brother Jun-Sil of treason. However, Jun-San claimed he had formed a secret investigation team that was officially investigating but actually destroying evidence to protect his brother. Jun-San revealed crucial information. The man who controlled the scene at the church that day was named Beeks and Ho, codenamed Mark, a member of Valkyria, America's top mercenary organization. This group only cares about money, not people they can kill or protect any target. But Moon-Ju refused to believe her husband was a spy and returned to the church seeking answers. When knocking got no response, Moon-Ju pushed open the door to find chaos inside and the priest lying in a pool of blood. Suddenly, someone covered her mouth. It was Mark. He confirmed the priest was dead, but the ransacked room showed the killer was obviously searching for something. Just then, the killer appeared, seeing the pen in the killer's hand. Mark confirmed this was indeed the murderer and immediately engaged in intense combat. Using his superior skills, he subdued the attacker and was about to question him about his purpose when knocking came from behind, and the killer took advantage of the chaos to escape. Mark led Moon-Ju out through the church's secret chamber. This underground hideout, built during the Japanese occupation, absolutely amazed Moon-Ju. Mark explained that this church had a code name, the Catacombs, and both he and the priest were members. Finally, Moon-Ju asked the burning question, was Mark really a Valkyria mercenary? Mark revealed that his contract with Valkyria had ended last year. Furthermore, Mark had found in the priest's Bible an identical business card to the one the killer had, and the priest had been poisoned, the killing method far beyond ordinary assassins. More importantly, the priest had mentioned that he planned to deliver important information left by Congressman Jun-Sil during the next day's mass. At this moment, Moon-Ju also remembered that her husband had indeed said he had something important to tell her when he returned from the church. At that moment, Mark retrieved the pen-shaped container from a wine bottle, with a secret letter hidden inside. The instant Moon-Ju opened the letter, the truth hit like a thunderbolt from clear skies. Inside was a satellite image of a submarine with coordinates pointing to a shipyard near Jeju Island. This letter came from Miller, a Korean-American Assistant Secretary of State, and its contents to Jun-Sil were absolutely shocking. According to intelligence, North Korea was building a 10-ton nuclear submarine equipped with 16 state of minus. The are vertical launch tubes capable of carrying 128 nuclear warheads. If the analysis was correct, North Korea's nuclear threat had become reality. Upon receiving this intelligence, the Pentagon immediately convened an emergency meeting and decided to use low-yield tactical nuclear weapons for precision strikes against the peninsula's nuclear facilities and missile silos. However, both Miller and his close friend Jun-Sil advocated for peace and absolutely refused to see all a war break out. Miller voiced his opposition during the meeting, pointing out that preemptive strikes could trigger a full-scale war. But the Secretary of State arrogantly declared that this war would be over in just 5 minutes. Miller was banned from subsequent meetings because of his dissent. Due to Miller's position, the CIA began secretly monitoring him, realizing he was under surveillance. Miller wrote down everything in a secret letter, concealed it in a pen, and had it secretly delivered to Korea through a friend. After receiving this letter, Jun-Sil immediately changed his hardline stance and began advocating for peaceful unification instead. Armed with the truth, Moon-Ju used her former ambassador status to request a meeting with President Park. She hoped President Park could understand the real reason behind Jun-Sil's murder and America's war plan. But President Park's reaction was unexpected. She said meaningfully that she didn't know why Jun-Sil hadn't burned the letter. If he had, perhaps the priest wouldn't have died, and Moon-Ju wouldn't have gotten dragged into this mess. As soon as she finished speaking, President Park actually burned the secret letter right in front of Moon-Ju. Then President Park revealed another truth. When Moon-Ju was serving as ambassador at the UN, President Park had already wanted to replace her. It wasn't that Moon-Ju had voluntarily returned home for her husband's career. Most crushing of all, President Park stated that once the real mastermind behind Jun-Sil's murder was exposed, it could very likely trigger a war. So Jun-Sil could only die in vain, and Moon-Ju had to leave politics. At the Seoul Air Show, watching President Park's red carpet display of power, Moon-Ju felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. It was exactly this helplessness that hardened her resolve. She craved power, not for power's sake, but to change this state of powerlessness. Back home, she found her mother in law backing to move out. Moon-Ju seized this opportunity to ask why she had initially opposed her marriage to Jun-Sil. Her mother in law's answer revealed her political wisdom. Although Moon-Ju came from a single parent family and was raised by her mother working odd jobs, during her opposition period, the mother in law had conducted an in-depth investigation into her background. After seeing Moon-Ju rise to fame in a UN simulation speech, her mother in law recognized her potential. Moon-2 possessed both the professional competence of a diplomat and the resilient character of a commoner, exactly what her son, Jun-Sil lacked. 3 generations of her family's investment had been aimed at grooming Jun-Sil to become a rising political star, but now she believed Moon-2 was the most suitable presidential candidate. Since they'd gotten this far in the conversation, Moon-2 didn't hold back. She needed financial backers, media resources, and all the necessary conditions for campaigning. Her mother Ing-Law revealed that years ago, during her background investigation of Moon-2, she had discovered that one of Moon-2's aspirations at the time was to become president, and so Moon-2 embarked on the path to the presidency, while Jun-Sil's death became the tragic collision between peaceful ideals and great power interests, and also became Moon-2's means of winning votes.